legendary racket technician to the pros and the regular Joes. Nobody better in the business. Welcome Roman in for a great conversation.
So today we're talking about the racket evaluation process. And the way I would describe the racket evaluation process is, if you've ever seen the scene in Harry Potter where Harry goes to get his wand, well, Mr. Roman's the person who's going to get you your wand. So Mr. Roman, will you just kind of tell people what a racket evaluation is?
So many things go into racket evaluation. Basically, how it came to be, it's working over the years with the pro players. You learn from them a lot. You know, they are finicky and they have special needs as far as the racket goes. Springing, tensions, racket length, the weight, the balance, the swing weight, and on and on and on. Even the paint job, the color, the finish of the paint job makes a difference. So basically going from the professional level of tennis, then you go back to the shop and you start talking to people like myself, regular people who love to play tennis, and they go and they spend a lot of money on tennis rackets. They go, they buy a couple of tennis rackets because, you know, a friend that plays with it, or they say my pro recommended it because that's what he plays with. So they buy racket for $500, $600, $700 these days, couple of rackets, and 2 weeks later they are in my shop saying, "Oh, I have a really bad racket." And you look at the racket and it's a great racket. So what do they mean? Why do they think it's a bad racket? Because there is really no such a thing as a bad racket, really, but it's a bad matchup. So what I try to do, I basically brought from the professional level of the game to the retail and to young kids. It's matching people with the right racket for their game.
I think the thing that's special about you is you set up a scenario where you can find what the right racket is for them in their playing style. So can you kind of paint a picture for people if they were to come and do a racket evaluation? What does that even look like?
It's the typical evaluation is a 1 hour. So let's say we did one for your son when you came to New York before we moved here to Farm and Forge.
Right.
So it's a lot of questions have to be asked before I even see you or your son.
Like what?
How old is the kid? How tall is the kid? Do you have any, current injuries or previous injuries as far as, connected to the racket? Not that my ankle hurts, but it's more, the typical
elbow, wrist,
tennis, shoulder, and all that stuff. What's the weight of the racket that you play with? What's the length of the racket? How long do you use the racket? Why do you use the racket? Somebody just switched maybe a month ago, and that's what they play with. So I need to know all this. Basically, the more I know, the better, because it helps me create a picture in my mind what we are looking for. And also, another question is, what is it that you are trying to do? Are you looking for more power, more spin? Are you working with a pro who is kind of hounding you for get under the ball, generate more spin, and then I see you with a racket that does not produce spin, or it's very difficult to do it? So all these questions kind of help me already select rackets that we take on a court. Once you show up, then basically you do the warm up, and then you go on the court. And the very important part is that the third person on a court, not just me, and not only your son, for example, but the pro on the other side.
And why is that? Why does the pro on the other side matter?
Because I need the feedback from them. So first of all, they have to control the point. So they have to be able to outplay really the player, So they have to create different scenarios and handle all those scenarios. And then I need a feedback because I need to know, how is the opponent feeling on the court? Is the ball kicking up on them? Is it pushing them back? Or because I can look at your son and kind of put the blinders on and say, oh my God, he's playing amazingly well with racket A. But then when I look on the other side, it doesn't produce, it doesn't hurt the opponent. So it's a team effort of 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, it's genius. It's simple. And you think, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Right? And here's what it was, is I'm watching you do the evaluation. You've got the person doing the evaluation on one side. You've got the pro on the other side. You're handing the racket to the person that's getting the evaluation. And like you said, that person may look amazing, but then you look to the other side of the court, which a lot of people don't do. They think, how does this feel to me? What do I think about the racket? But they never look at, what is that racket doing to the opponent?
Exactly.
we're doing the same amount of work on this side, but we want the racket that with that amount of work does the most damage on the other side. It speaks to efficiency. So can you kind of talk about that?
Correct. At the end of the day, that's what the game of tennis is really all about. You need to go on a court and look, if possible, like Federer. Seemingly doesn't do much. He's
producing a lot of
gliding
damage
on the court. It looks so simple and easy, but he's creating a lot of damage on the other side
with little effort. Yeah.
With the little effort. So in a way, he's seemingly using 70-80% of his energy, while the other person has to use 100% of the energy. And that's, in a crux, that's kind of what it is all about. Because you can look, like you said, you can look great, but if you're burning energy, and you can look great for 20 minutes and then you can't lift the racket because it's too heavy,
right?
And you're not going to win many matches. So it really comes kind of to that, holistic approach. It's not just how do you feel, how do you like it. It's hopefully the opponent doesn't like it and doesn't feel too good, because that means they have to work too much. And so we have to kind of match a little bit. You still have to like the racket, obviously, but maybe not so much, as long as it does the damage on the other side.
Yeah, and you think about if you can get you're watching the other side and this player's giving 100%, and then you can find a racket where they give 70% and it does equal or more damage with 70% effort.
Correct.
Wow, what a scenario.
Correct.
And I just can't take out of my head that scene in Harry Potter where he picks one wand up and it like blows up the shop.
Yeah.
He picks it. But when he gets the right one, I thought the interesting thing during the evaluation, I kind of getting goosebumps thinking about it, is when the right one was put in his hands, it was obvious to everybody. Right.
Exactly.
But you're really curating from thousands of combinations to bring maybe 20 rackets on the court, right?
It's usually even less, because 20 rackets is a lot to choose from, especially within an hour. So we always try to, the rule of RPNY tennis was always keep it simple, stupid, right?
Right.
So we try to simplify it as much as possible. And I think that's where the experience working with players for so many years kind of comes into play, because it allows me to seemingly keep it somewhat simple. And so, again, let's say using your son, his body type, his height, the fact that he's still growing, and on, all that information, that he did not have injuries at that time, so he was perfectly fine. The way he's hitting the ball, because there is some little hiccups that it's not my department, that's up to the pros and your son to kind of address it, but I am not there to change the way they play, to say, well, you should do this or you should do that, because that's not my job. I am not a pro. So it's more, this racket will perform the best for not only for the player, the way they play, but also as a coach, I would love my player to have this racket, because it will allow me to take him where I want to take him. So it's almost kind of guiding a little bit, where do we want to go with this racket? If you are looking, I could give everybody big racket with a lot of power and they would feel great for 5 minutes. But then does it allow them to grow? Does it allow them to be creative, to shape the ball?
Play a 3-hour match.
Exactly, to play 3-hour match and on and on. So all of that has to come into play. Just to use an example, yesterday we had a consultation right here at the Farm and Forge with one of the pros, and it's a gentleman who is not a pro. He plays maybe 4.0, 4.5 level tennis player, and very strong person. So I already see him walking into the shop. I already forming a little bit opinion, because usually when people are very strong in their shoulder, he's in great shape, they're going to try to use those muscles. They're going to try to overpower the ball using the shoulders, as opposed to using the feet and stepping into the ball. And the racket that he had was probably great racket, but probably the worst match for him, because he had a big racket with a lot of power. His issue is footwork. It doesn't create space. So big racket with a lot of power, he tends to, overhit the ball by 10 feet deep, because the movement is not there.
Right.
And he doesn't need the power, because he's very strong. So based upon already just seeing him and not even know how he plays, I already pre-selected bunch of rackets, kind of less power, less power, less power. At the end of the hour, he ended up with a racket that you would almost think he has no business playing with. I gave him racket with dense string pattern, heavy frame, with the least amount of power, which normally you would give to somebody who is a professional tennis player, like Tsitsipas or Zverev, big, strong guy. But this gentleman, for him, it was the best fit because he can then control the ball, and that allows him to swing more freely.
And he never, I guarantee walking in, he never would have thought he was going to use that racket.
Correct.
I think that's what's special about the evaluation. So you've got multiple scenarios and evaluations, and you do these evaluations for everyone from a beginner tennis player all the way to the pros. So can you talk about what are the types of evaluations you do, 1 hour, half day, all that kind of stuff? And then who's this for?
The evaluations are, like you mentioned, it's really for everyone because a lot of times we can do it with small kids. I mentioned, I believe last time, my friend in New Jersey who has a couple of tennis clubs. His son by now is a 16, 17-year-old kid playing great tennis. I started with him when he was maybe 7.
Right.
And so back then the evaluation, or basically with a smaller kid, it's not really about, how much spin you are producing. It's more about the length and the weight of the racket. You don't want to be too heavy. You don't want to be too long. So it's that somewhat simple matchup. So that's within an hour, you really know what we are looking for. And then since the kid is growing, we adjust it every 3-4 months. We adjust weight and then the length. In general, the evaluation in New York, mostly they lasted 1 hour. It was because of lack of tennis courts and lack of time. Okay. As always, it comes down to real estate in New York.
Sure.
So here it allows us to basically have multiple different options, which are needed for the better player, for the pro player. So the 1 hour is great for, like the gentleman yesterday, for example, it was perfect. If I needed one for myself, it would be the 1 hour, and that's plenty. However, then we have a gentleman coming next week who is a former player. He's 44. He plays a lot of tournaments. So that 1 hour is great to kind of select the one or two rackets that will most likely work for him. But then we need to kind of make sure that they really do. So
Right.
we have a break, couple hours. The player can have a lunch or relax or take a break. And it allows me to change the racket to what I think it should be. The handle size, the weight, the balance, the strength, the string tension.
Right.
And then we go back
it
and
again.
basically kind of double check on ourselves. Is this really the right recommendation? So it's a 2-hour consultation. We also have last Friday, we had a kid who came here from Florida, 15-year-old kid, 12 UTR, future professional player. So we do a one day consultation, which is really 4 hours on court.
Right.
So we do the 2 hours in the morning, which allows us to really discuss and do all the type of shots. And we do it with the pros. They have to be really top of the line pros.
Right.
Who can control the ball, who can read the ball.
The person on the other side of the court.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who can separate also, well, you missed the ball by 10 feet, but it has nothing to do with the racket. That's because your left foot wasn't positioned the right way. So we need all that kind of in one package. Then again, take a break. I do what I need to do. And then we go and we almost do like a play type scenario where we had 3 high-level players here. So the person was able to hit with all 3 of them, kind of rotate. So
You're talking about some of our coaches.
Exactly.
I mean, we're lucky to have a guy like Tennis Sangren. And you're going to have to be pretty good to be better than him for the evaluation. You've got Mikhail Torpegard.
Yeah.
Who else are you using in your evaluations?
we are talking Zeke, who is still
Zeke Clark, yeah.
and he gives great feedback. So I need these players as much as the other player on the court because I need to hear, what do you feel? This is what I am seeing from the side, but does it agree with what you are feeling?
Right.
And then we have a 2-day consultations for people who kind of want to make a trip out of it. Let's go to
Right.
Nashville. Let's have fun. Let's go out. Let's stay in a nice hotel. Let's go for a nice dinner, and let's play some tennis. So it's a basically 2-day package.
You do the evaluation, then you're really dialing the racket in,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then for the ones that are more than an hour, And I can't emphasize how important that is, because once they know the frame, they may not know the string. And once they know the string, they may not know the tension.
Correct.
The longer they're here, the longer the evaluation is, the more they can truly dial in to know exactly what they want. And then I'll say, like, for my son, when we came to New York, the racket was obvious. But then he grew about 4 inches and he gained about 20 pounds. So then y'all had to do a follow-up a year later. And then he switched again. And that's made a dramatic impact. So, you know, as the player changes, the choice of racket, I think, kind of adapts. Is that right?
That's what we do. For example, being part of the Farm and Forge, if you are part of the full-time academy, we do this twice a year for that exact reason, because kids, they grow, they get better,
Right.
they put on a lot of weight in a good way. So a lot of things can change within 6 months. With a typical adult, usually you can do it and they are good for 2 to 3 years and you don't need to do any more changes. But the second part about the string, the tension, the weight and balance, that's very important, because if I just take a racket off the wall, we are halfway there. It's a good racket for you, but then if we don't do the final tuning, kind of the final adjustment, it still might be, you know, it's nice, but it's really not what I'm looking for. So the string, the tension, what gauge you are using, and on, that's almost as important as the first part about the frame.
I didn't realize that if you bought 3 of the same racket, how different they are in the quality control when they're produced.
Because all the rackets are manufactured in big factories in Far East, mostly in China. And it doesn't mean that the rackets are bad, but there is a tolerance for plus minus.
What is the plus minus generally?
Well, it depends what brand, but it could be all the way plus minus 7 grams. So imagine in tennis, if you, let's say, you have a 300-gram racket, one could be 293 and one could be 307. You're talking completely different rackets. Or you can pick a couple rackets that are within a couple grams, so you can say, no, that's good enough. Well, one could have a swing weight that is 10 points lower or higher. So again, you just spent a lot of money for a couple rackets, and then you're going to play with one. Because you're going to always say, well, I like that one. I don't want to play with the other one. So you kind of wasted the additional $300 on the second racket since you just like one. So automatically what we do when you come to us and we do these consultations, or even when you just come and buy more than one racket, we match them. So every time you walk out of our shop here at Farm and Forge with more than one racket, they are same weight, same balance, same swing weight. And even if you just walk out with one, we record what you're left with, so that eventually if you buy the second one, we can match it.
So like if they call from New York,
correct,
you don't even have to ask them anything. It's in the computer. When you ship it to them, it matches the ones they already have. You know, one of the things when you told me that I thought was interesting is I've got the machine you can weigh and do the swing, and it wasn't identical like to the gram. So like if you say 324 grams, it was to the decimal place, like 324.7 or whatever. All of them were identical. So I was amazed the level of detail that y'all pay attention to.
We try to do that, obviously, when it's possible. Sometimes, remember that, let's say you get a racket and you go and you play.
What's different sweat and all
different
that?
Different sweat and different...
I weighed them before we used them.
Exactly, before you touch them, If we try to be exact, not just 1 gram, 2 grams, but if it's possible to do it to 0.1 gram, that's where we go.
Well, you had nailed it with these.
Yeah, we try,
So can you tell, if you want to, maybe 1 or 2 evaluations you've done, and you don't have to name the pro. You can name the pro if you want, but some examples of evaluations you've done with pro players and kind of what the difference it made?
It can really make with the pro players, it can make a difference, because you have to really, really fine tune it. So it's not just about a racket, because a lot of times I will use Madison Keys. Before last year, for example, we had a consultation with her, know her for a long time, worked with her for a long time. Before the Australian Open, it was the preseason in Orlando.
Like December.
And she already kind of decided that the racket that she had, which was a form of a Wilson blade, that she wants to change, that she needs something that it's a little bit easier for her, right? Because the blade is a phenomenal racket if you are in tip-top shape. You are always moving your feet really well. So she said, look, I need something different. So with Bjorn, her husband, who is a obviously great former player, we helped her pick a racket that was made by Yonex, but already custom made because the paint had to be different, right? And then when we go on court, so it's the racket is kind of already there, and then it's a matter of fine tuning. Do we put 1 more gram here or a little bit more there? So it's really goes into this 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 grams. And then on top of it, it goes into what string, because now you have let's say you figure out the racket, the weight, the balance, the swing weight. Well, how does it perform with, this string, with that string, with a mixture of different strings? So, and even the color of the string can make a difference. So she picked string from Yonex, which was this bright orange, and she played really well with it, but there was still something. You look at it and you go, well, there is something. Just great player, obviously, so it's hard to say, oh, it's bad, but there is something a little bit missing. So then, I already know that the colors can make a difference, so we tested the same string and two different colors, and sure enough, I mean, she hit 2 balls with that other color, and she knew it, I knew it, Bjorn knew it, so that's the one for you. She got extra 2 feet of height and more depth. The third color,
Just changing color.
just changing color with the
Wow.
same string. The third color was actually almost even better, but it was already too risky because it was already, the ball was going additional foot, so it was already landing on the line. That means, you get a little bit tight, you're going to start missing.
Right.
So that was a great option for when you go on clay, when the ball doesn't move. I would suggest to switch to that color. So that's it. That's one example. We had Sloane Stephens here. That's not a secret. She came, spent a couple of days here with our pros and got a phenomenal consultation here and great couple of days. And it was the same thing. She said, I am certain age. This is what I'm looking for. The previous racket was obviously great for me, but I'm looking for something different now. I need to add something to my game based upon where I am, in life and on tennis court. So that helped us pick a racket for her within a couple of days, and she loved it and settled on it. And is she going to win with it or not? That's a different, obviously that's out of my hands, but we try to help the player to be very comfortable.
Give them their
on the
very
court.
best chance. Yeah, and I think that's what's special about Farm and Forge is we're all working together so that the athlete has the best chance to be as good as they can possibly be. And how many people out there would understand that glossy is different from matte, that this color string versus that color. And I think that's something that's special about you and Miss Angelica is just understanding all of the variables and working through all the combinations to end up with the exact right combination for them at that moment. But to your point, in 3 years, that may not be the right combination.
Correct. I'm not a golfer, right? So I cannot really speak much of golf, but paying attention to people who play golf and, and talking about the various sports to what we do, I think it's more resembles golf than the typical tennis.
100%.
Because in tennis, if I go on a golf course or walk into the golf club, I never played in my life, so I am anything but a pro in golf, yet I'll be treated certain way. They're not going to just hand me something because it's nice and nice color, or they want to get rid of it. They're going to do certain customization. They're going to ask certain questions. And it doesn't mean that I'll be a great golfer because I might be really bad at it, but they're going to already help me put equipment in my hand that is going to help me to be as good as I possibly can be within my abilities. So that's really what we do in tennis, because a lot of times people think these consultations are not for me because I'm not good enough. It has nothing to do with it.
What I noticed being not from the tennis world is that the equipment is almost viewed as an afterthought.
Correct,
right?
Correct.
Where you're right in golf, whether it's a flexible shaft, a regular shaft, a stiff shaft, what brands, all of them have their own benefits. If it's a cavity blade or, but in golf, the equipment is so respected.
Yes.
Right? In tennis, it's like, hey, until you get to be in a certain level, it doesn't matter, just use this. But you always wonder if they had gotten into the right equipment, would they have not quit? Would they have fell in love with the sport? All that type of stuff. So that's what I love about what you guys do is.
To me, that's a great point that what you just brought, because it doesn't guarantee that because you went to see Roman, you'll never lose a match.
No.
However, it's a lot of those that people would not quit the game, because we have a lot of people we deal with. They play with something, whatever racket, and they said, I can't play the sport because I had a tennis elbow. It's horrendous elbow. I'm never playing again in my life. Is it possibly because of the equipment? Many times it is.
It could be.
And one thing about the pros, I'm not really sure where that comes from, to be honest. Great pros, right? In the whole world of tennis, there's a lot of very knowledgeable pros and players. For some reason, that attitude that the equipment is, learn to play and then it doesn't matter what you play with. I don't really know where that comes from, where in a sport of golf, that's not the attitude. So I wish that would change a little bit, because it would help a lot of people be healthy and enjoy the game more.
Yeah, you have a saying that you said to me in New York that your motto is to treat the average Joe like the pro.
Correct.
And I think golf sort of embraces that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think watching you, is one of the things that makes you special.
We try, and it also goes a little bit further, and we spoke about this when the Farm and Forge idea came to be, and it's almost, I see a lot of times in tennis, in the game of tennis, what is always very strange to me, and you agreed with it, and you said, not coming from the game of tennis, that you saw it right away. So you get your 5, 6, 7-year-old, and everybody is all over them, right? As a parent, as a coach, because you give them everything they can, and on and on. So everybody supports this young player. This young player then becomes a high school player. So again, there's a lot of attention that's, puts on them. They take the private lessons, people spend money, then potentially you go and become a college player, which the colleges are amazing and it's incredible. The day after you finish college, unless you turn pro, people say, oh, you used to play tennis. And you are done.
I still play.
It's like, no, I'm 22 and I love, I have 50, 60, 70 years in front of me. I've played this amazing game, yet somehow you get a little bit dismissed. Oh, you are a former tennis player. You used to play tennis. The game of golfing is the exact opposite.
Exact opposite.
And I think that's what we are trying to really also do here at Farm and Forge. Nobody gets dismissed because you used to play tennis in college. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for listening to this one. I hope you join us for the next one. In the next one, we're going to talk about the racket customization that Mr. Roman does. So we hope you'll check with that.